Welcome back to Outside Views, and I want to talk today about a political figure again who is arguably the most recognizable and polarizing in Britain and perhaps even Europe, and that's Nigel Farage. For a political party like Reform UK, Farage is a fascinating and fundamental paradox, a force of nature who simultaneously represents their greatest asset and their single biggest danger. It's a classic case study of what the business and financial sectors call key person risk. And this concept describes the inherent fragility of a business, or in this context, an ascent political party, that is entirely reliant on the presence and performance of one individual, usually the founder or a towering figurehead. And the truth is, looking at reform from an outside perspective, this reliance on one man creates a fatal structural weakness at the heart of the party. And my personal view, based on what we are seeing unfold, is that Reform UK is structurally incapable of governing a modern complex state because their success is not built on policy depth, institutional strength, or disciplined personnel, but purely on the cult of one man's personality. They are, in essence, a high-octane racing car with only one wheel bolted on securely. The strength part of this argument is indisputable and even admirable in its political tenacity. Farage is a brilliant communicator, a master of media engagement, and an utterly relentless campaigner who thrives in the political theatre. He can generate national headlines simply by deciding to show up somewhere, and he connects with a section of the electorate that feels completely ignored, patronized, or even disdained by the mainstream Conservative and Labour establishments. He is Reform's engine, their spokesperson, their funding magnet, and their national brand, all wrapped up into one instantly recognizable and highly effective package. No other figure in contemporary British politics has this kind of innate, unfiltered, and deeply visceral pull with voters who feel left behind by the political consensus. Without Farage, the party is a handful of local councillors and a tax return form. With him, it's a significant political force. But this immense, irreplaceable energy, this total reliance on one person, is precisely where the liability begins, and it is a danger that any serious long-term government must address and avoid. The danger is not just theoretical, it's already baked into their operations and their political agenda. If you step back and assess reform structural integrity, the concept of key person risk jumps out immediately and screams for attention. How can a political movement that aims to fundamentally reshape the constitutional and economic direction of a country be so intrinsically fragile? The entire edifice of the party seems to rest not on established rules, transparent accountability, or even a deep bench of experienced politicians, but entirely on whether Farage is awake, campaigning, and speaking into a microphone on any given day. This is a disastrous, amateurish foundation for a party that holds any genuine ambition to govern Britain and manage its complex economy and security apparatus. The question is not if Farage steps away, retires, or decides to run for yet another parliamentary seat, but when he does. And when that day comes, the party's energy, its funding stream, its direction, and its entire reason for being will all grind to an immediate, chaotic, and shuddering halt. A political party that wishes to succeed cannot be merely a personality cult. It needs depth, it needs discipline, a coherent institutional structure, and a deep, credible pool of talent that lasts longer than one man's immediate attention span. The evidence that reform fundamentally lacks this institutional DNA is already accumulating across three key areas: their ability to govern locally, their approach to key independent institutions, and their own basic organizational competence. Let's look first at their ability to govern, as showcased in the local elections in Kent. Reform UK managed a huge political upset there, taking control of Kent County Council by winning 57 of the 81 seats and overturning a 30-year conservative majority. The party themselves rightly hailed this victory as their shop window, a flagship example to show the country that a reform administration could govern competently and with fiscal responsibility, particularly by avoiding an expected council tax hike. But what did that window actually reveal to the outside world? It revealed complete, public and embarrassing chaos that went far beyond mere growing pains. Footage of an online meeting was leaked to the press showing the KCC leader Lyndon Kemkeren in a shocking exchange with her own backbench councillors when they dared to question her. The language she used to address her own members, the very people needed to support and run the council with an annual budget of more than £2.5 billion, was astounding in its sheer dictatorial arrogance. She told them, in what must be one of the most revealing political quotes of the year, that when it came to making the really big decisions, she might make a choice that is not universally liked. And her solution to this internal disagreement? She said, "I'm afraid you are just going to have to fucking suck it up." And I hope YouTube doesn't punish me for that one. And this kind of language shows a profound contempt for internal debate, a total disregard for the need to persuade and manage a political group, and a really startling lack of disciplined, mature leadership. The on-screen footage showed the Reform councillors left visibly shocked by her comments, and the ensuing meltdown saw 4 KCC councillors having the party whip suspended pending an investigation into their conduct. And one of the suspended councillors, Paul Thomas, was the same man Ms. Kemkeren threatened to mute after he questioned whether the Reform group had the right leader and the right cabinet. And this incident is deeply revealing because it confirms that the culture of top-down authoritarian rule that defines the national leadership is instantly replicated at the local level. The opposition was quick to pounce, with the Labour Party spokesman or spokesperson correctly stating that the chaos in Kent confirmed that the Nigel Farage government would look like complete chaos, with members fighting like rats in a sack. And if they cannot manage a local council with a large budget without descending into public internal warfare and the suspension of a handful of members, how on earth can they be trusted with the complex, multi-layered apparatus of the entire British state? The second major concern, which speaks directly to the party's long-term instability and threat to the economic stability of the country, is Farage's open contempt for independent, non-political institutions, specifically the Bank of England. For nearly 3 decades, the operational independence of the central bank has been a pillar of the UK's economic credibility, established in 1997 to shield crucial interest rate decisions from short-term political interference and grandstanding. Farage, a former commodities trader, is now openly suggesting that if he were to ever become Prime Minister, he would replace the current Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey. And he claims Bailey has had a good run, and added in a moment of truly chilling political casualness that he's a nice enough bloke, but the political implementation is clear. Farage wants a governor who is politically compliant with his views. And this is not some one-off ill-judged comment. It's a clear effort to follow in the footsteps of his close friend President Donald Trump, who repeatedly and publicly attacked the US Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, over interest rate decisions and often used insulting language toward him. The danger posed by politicizing the central bank is immense and should terrify anyone who values economic stability. Destroying the bank's credibility as an independent actor is the quickest way to undermine market confidence and introduce massive volatility to the currency and the economy. It would be a multiplied Liz Truss act. A country whose central bank is seen as a political pawn, subject to the whims of the Prime Minister's latest demands for lower rates, is a country deliberately inviting economic chaos and inflation. And it's revealing that Farage is demanding this greater political influence just weeks after he and his deputy, Richard Tice, a former head of reform, held a meeting with Bailey at the bank's headquarters in London. Farage has been vocal in his desire for politicians to have greater influence and has made comments about the need for a central bank to understand that the world of finance is changing, has changed, and very, very rapidly, in reference to his personal interest in digital currencies and his goal of making London a global powerhouse for cryptocurrencies. He has even called Bailey a dinosaur for his earlier views on these matters. And while his deputy has pushed for Treasury representatives to be appointed to sit on the bank's rate-setting monetary policy committee, Farage's ultimate goal seems to be making the Bank of England a compliant tool of his personal or party agenda. This is a clear institutional liability that should deeply concern any serious investor or business leader or voter who values the stability of the national finances. And finally, we have the simple, deeply embarrassing liability of basic organizational competence. A political party is a legal entity, and it must operate within the law, particularly when it comes to the complex affairs of national taxation. Yet, Reform UK is now facing the prospect of a hefty tax bill as it investigates whether it underpaid VAT, that's value-added tax. And while political parties do not have to pay VAT on membership fees or donations, they are fully liable for the tax on income they receive from ticket sales and merchandise. It has been reported that Reform likely received more than the £90,000 VAT threshold in such income last year, meaning that legally they ought to have registered for VAT and charged it on those sales. But the party reportedly did not charge VAT until the end of April this year, and while there is no suggestion of deliberate evasion, tax experts have suggested the overall bill, including late payment charges and interest, could be in the region of £46,000. Now, £46,000 is not a ruinous amount for a national political party. But the fact that a party whose core message is cutting council waste, slashing bureaucracy, and running a lean, competent state cannot even manage its own basic corporate tax affairs is an astounding and deeply worrying liability. How can you credibly promise to fix the entire national financial system, to overhaul the Treasury, and to cut national waste when you cannot even ensure your own basic corporate VAT forms are filled out and filed correctly? It confirms the powerful suspicion that the entire reform operation is essentially an amateur, hastily assembled vehicle built only for media presence and the generation of protest votes, and not for the complex, grinding and detailed work of running an actual government. So in conclusion, Nigel Farage is Reform UK. His name is the party's only real strength, the single element that grants them attention, energy and votes from a frustrated electorate. But this single towering asset is also their terminal, most dangerous liability. The party's internal chaos and public infighting in Kent, the leaders' open willingness to shatter the operational independence of the Bank of England, and the inability to manage its own simple tax affairs all point to one definitive conclusion. Reform UK is not a party in waiting. It's a protest movement built on one man's charisma, and that is all it will ever be. It is structurally dangerous because it replaces institutional stability with personal ego and basic quiet administrative competence with headline-generating chaos. And my view is that a party that is only as strong as its leader's current mood and as stable as its most recent local bust-up is a party that must not be trusted with the incredibly sensitive and important keys to the kingdom. They are selling disruption, but what they are guaranteed to deliver, as already demonstrated in their flagship council, is just plain destabilizing chaos. And that is the chaos I believe the British economy, its institutions and its people simply cannot afford right now. So thanks for watching, and if you want to see another video right now, the next one is right here in the end screen.